And happy Saturday. This is not your regularly scheduled show, which is, of course, Sucker Punch with Joe Habib and yours truly, Maestro Amilcar en Espanol Maestro. We're going to do a special edition of Beating the Odds with Beeb. So, this is a special Beating the Odds with Beeb fight day special. It's been long overdue, Joe. You used to do these quite regularly, but you haven't done them as regularly recently. But this is a big fight. A lot of people have said, Joe, that this is a 50-50 fight. So let's see how things can shake out and break down for those interested in dropping a little bit of money on today's big fight between David Morell Jr., the WBA interim light heavyweight champion, and David Benavidez, the WBC interim light heavyweight champion. We're going to have a little bit of a preview show, more in terms of the X's and O's in the very next hour. So 10 a.m., maybe a little bit after 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in New York City or in Boston where Joe is. But for the first part, we're going to go into the betting odds. And there are a lot of people out there, Joe, that claim to be really good at the fight predictions. But unlike you, they very rarely post their betting results. So if you're interested in laying a bet, in understanding your best options for the fight later today, Joe Habib is the man. And without further ado, Joe Habib, the floor is yours, brother. Take it from here.
Well, these are the fights that are the most fun to break down. These are the fights that are the most fun to predict because you have like a divide on both sides. And not only the divide on both sides on who's going to win, but the big thing is how they're going to win. And the way these odds are posted to me says that odds makers believe this fight, regardless of who wins, is most likely going to go the distance. And I 100% agree with them. We know that sometimes David Benavidez can be a slow starter, but for the most part, David Morell has been a slow slider consistently throughout the course of his career. I have a feeling David may get off to a quick start here, but I do think, true to form, Morell will be more of the more methodical guy, being the counterpuncher type, trying to use some space, trying to set some traps. So as a result of that, I think this will be a cat and mouse game early, and then in the middle of the fight, I think that Morell will have no choice but to try to have to fight David off. So in my opinion, I think this fight goes the distance. I know you think Morell is going to win. I think David Benavidez is going to win. So let's break down these odds. These odds are pretty tight. You know, you got David Benavidez as a minus 230, and you got David Morell at a plus 180. So this is essentially, I mean, we call this a 50-50 fight. I think the insiders do. But David Benavidez, for all intents and purposes, is basically a 2-1 favorite, which is a very slight favorite here. So if you do like Morell, the plus 180 is fine. You know, if you do like Morell, the plus 180 is fine. But if you want to be a little aggressive, you could take Morell by decision at plus 320. But again, you know, you're getting pretty decent odds at 180. So why make it harder than it has to be? If you really like him and you may think he's going to win by decision, or you're not sure, just bet him straight up. That's my recommendation if you really like Morell. But the big problem here is David Benavidez, right? Minus 230. You have to lay a lot if you like Benavidez straight up. So my recommendation, if you're going to bet that David Benavidez, I would suggest and recommend betting him at the plus 125 by decision, because that's, in my opinion, the most likely outcome, right? So if you like Benavidez, which I do, my recommendation and my pick tonight and my bet will be David Benavidez by decision at plus 125. But if you're a Morell fan, as you are, and you say you're picking him and you would like to bet on him, I would just recommend betting him straight up at the plus 180. Those are not bad odds, right? So, you know, you could pick up a little extra change at plus 320. But if you're already getting decent odds, hedge your bet there. Just bet him straight up because, you know, anything can happen in boxing. It's not impossible that he could knock out David Benavidez. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So again, I'm taking Benavidez by decision at the plus 125. If you like Morell, take him at the plus 180.
So I'm actually seeing odds right now online, Joe. David Morell Jr. just to win straight up, not by decision, not by KO, just to win, plus 220, right?
Now, this
David Benavidez to win, straight up, minus 275. Break down those odds for me, Joe.
so though that I gave you the DraftKings odds,
Yeah.
right? So obviously the odds are going to be varied. So
Mhm.
you gotta definitely should go with the best odds you can get.
I mean, those are pretty good odds if you want to lay
Yeah,
money down on the
yeah.
Morell,
So
right?
regardless if you like David Morell, you're going to get decent odds anyway. So so I would recommend, just betting him straight up.
Maybe
So
dropping a little $20 on the KO.
if you like him by KO, you want to do a little bit of a hedge, you get a little creative. You can cover all your bases and throw a little on that because you will get like a plus, 600 by that, I think it is.
Yeah.
So that's pretty substantial. So you're gonna get Morell anywhere from plus 180 to plus 220 in that range, regardless of the sports book you go to. You're gonna get some odds with Morell, just straight up. But again, that is a real risk play. So that's also a great recommendation, Maestro. If you do like him by KO, but you're not sure, if you think that it's 50-50, why not just throw a little $20 on it? At plus 600, that's great. And then if it'll only cut a little bit into your winnings if you bet him at a plus 180 or a plus 220. So if you're getting plus 220, throw 20 on there. Then you'll get, if you hedge it with the knockout and it goes the distance, you'll still get your initial bet of 100 back plus the $200. So you'll subtract that $20 out of your winnings, so you'll still be on the plus side. So that's a great recommendation. Yeah. So if you want to hedge your bet and get a little bit aggressive and play both sides of it, you definitely can bet Morell straight up and then throw a little something on him by KO, which is fine. I don't think that's bad, but I'm almost, if I'm going to put a percentage on it,
Yeah.
I'm about 85% sure this fight goes the distance.
So, given that, let's look at Raider Jack's comment. Salute to you, Raider Jack. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for supporting the content and the show. So, big up to you for that. By the way, if you haven't done so yet, click the like button. If you're not a subscriber, you should be a subscriber. So, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And you also want to make sure you're getting all of the notifications every time Joe does go live or drop a video. So, make sure you also hit the notification button. That being said, Raider Jack says, I like the over
Bad
10 and a half
one.
rounds.
That's a bad one because the over is 10.5 minus 275. You gotta put up 275 just to make 100, while the under is a plus 195, right? So all these odds give you every indication that most people believe this is going the distance. So if you like the over, you're gonna have to put up a lot of money. So that's not really a good value play if you like the over. Now, if you really don't think this fight's going to go the distance and but you don't know who's going to win, taking the under at a plus 195 is great odds. It's great odds. So
Don Chile, this is a one here. He says, I'm not betting on either, but I'm about to buy this pay-per-view. We were just talking about this off air, but I'll bring it up on air here. I find it very interesting. I was speaking to a comrade over there in the UK who told me that the price for the pay-per-view in the UK is about £20. So that equates to roughly $25. Very interesting to me that Amazon Prime charges people in the UK $25, but is charging people in the US $80. They're gambling here too, Joe. How do you think that gamble plays out for Amazon Prime? Gambling, I'd say, and the PBC too, on people buying this pay-per-view. So Don Chile says he's buying the pay-per-view, but put the over-under on the pay-per-view buys for me here, Joe. let's look at that for a brief moment before we turn back to the fight itself. Over under 100,000 buys.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That's a
a hundred.
go for it.
I was gonna say 150,000. I was gonna be a little bit more generous than you. I think it does about 150,000 pay per view buys, right? And it's not great, but again, we don't know how many. We don't know what the deal is for these guys. We don't know how much they're making. We don't know what their pay per view deal is back end. We don't know if there's a certain amount that they have to sell before they get a back end. So you know, and in
I
you
mean,
know,
the over under for Teofimo Lopez, Subria Matias, is being reported. What was that number? If memory serves me well, it was either 100 or 150, right, for them to get back in money. The number on
something
my
like that. Yeah. And again, these
I
these
think it was
these
one. I think it was
people,
150.
yeah, the promoters don't want to take a bath, man. So they got to cover their own asses. But this, I got bad news for people who are adamant about this whole pay per view thing. Is problem is a lot of people are on Twitter already like tweeting out pictures of their Fire Stick saying Team Stream and stuff like that. So if that's any indication on uh, the enthusiasm for buying this fight, that's a pretty horrible sign, in my opinion.
Fight Doctor, thank you for tuning in and for supporting the content as always. The pay per view price in the U.S. is 80 smackaroos, $80. All right, 80 peso in español. So that's a lot of money for a pay per view, especially for these two guys who weren't necessarily proven pay per view stars. Uh, Raider Jack says that Fulton is good value. Let's look at the undercard there for a moment, Joe. The betting line that I have pulled up here, um, as it relates to Stephen Fulton Jr., is plus 205 for Stephen Fulton Jr. and a minus 245 for uh, Brandon Figueroa. Thoughts?
I like Figueroa in this fight by stoppage. So I think he's going to knock out Fulton. Um, I think he hurt him a few times in the first fight, but he just couldn't pin him down. But I think Fulton is a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to say he's shell shocked, but he took
Damage goods
yeah
following
he took
the Inoue
took
fight.
some damage in that Inoue fight. And I'm not 100% sure that that fight didn't take something out of him. I suspect maybe it did. So yeah, I'm a little concerned for him in this fight. I don't think this fight's going to be as competitive as the first fight. So yeah, Figueroa is a minus 235 here. Stephen Fulton's a plus 180. So again, Figueroa is a little bit over a 2-1 favorite here. Let's look at the props method of victory. I'm on FanDuel now, so Figueroa by points, he's a plus 20, plus 135, and Figueroa by KO is a plus 220. So Stephen Fulton by points is a plus 250, and Stephen Fulton by KO is a plus 850. So I like this Brandon Figueroa by KO at a plus 220. If I'm betting this fight, I would take the KO prop for Figueroa. I think Figueroa is probably going to get a stoppage here, in my opinion.
Okay. We've got another card here on the undercard. Sorry, another fight on the undercard. It's the return of Isaac Pitbull Cruz Gonzalez, who lost his last outing. He lost to uh, um, Valenzuela, right?
Correct. Valenzuela, yep.
On the
Lost the title to him,
yeah,
yep.
lost the 140-pound title, the WBA title against Rayo Valenzuela on the undercard of Crawford Madrimov. I was actually at that fight when Rayo won the title and was actually at the post-fight presser as well. Odds on Isaac Pitbull Cruz Gonzalez against Angel Fierro. You take Isaac, you're looking at a minus 760, Joe, versus a plus 485 for Angel Fierro.
Well,
Um,
on FanDuel, Isaac Cruz is a minus 1100 and
wow.
Fierro is a plus 540. So it's good to shop around, open up because I got a FanDuel account, I got a DraftKings account, another offshore account. So it's good to play around here. Isaac Cruz by decision is a plus 125. Isaac Cruz by KO is a minus 105. So it's almost even money. Cruz by KO. And Fierro by decision is a plus 850, and Fierro by KO is a whopping plus 1400. The pick here for me, what I'm recommending is Isaac Cruz by KO at a minus 105, which is essentially even money, the $105 to make a 100. So I would strongly recommend that one. I do not think Fierro is going to go the distance here. I think he's getting stopped.
Yeah, I think he's getting stopped as well. This is essentially a comeback fight for Pitbull Cruz, and I think they're going to be looking at it as such. Uh, Jose Benavidez, he's making his return on the undercard against Danny Rosenberger. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not very familiar with Danny Rosenberger. Joe, are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
His alias is Feel Good Hollywood. Oh, I've seen him. I've seen him fight before. Now that I look at his face on BoxRec, looks like he essentially pads his record by going to Colombia and then returns to the United States and uh, gets a win here, has a loss there. The odds on this fight wide where I'm looking at the minus 1,000 for Jose Benavidez, plus 600 for Danny Rosenberger. We got one guy pulling for Rosenberger, Drunk Irishman. He thinks Rosenberger's live for the win. So if you think that, Drunk Irishman, I'm pretty sure you can get good odds on Rosenberger. What are your thoughts there? Betting on these undercard fights is always very risky if you're betting for the the undercard fights if you're betting for the underdog. What are your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I don't like laying. I'm not going to lay $1,100 to make 100 here. I don't see any prop bets here. Let me see if I can see some prop. Yeah, there's no. I just see straight money line here. I'm not seeing any prop bets for this one, so I'm not sure. This one I'd probably if you if you want to throw a little something on Rosenberger, don't bet the house on him. But if you want to just throw a little something on him, I don't give him a shot here. But again, if you want to take a little bit of a make a little bit of a tickle here, then that's fine. I just don't see him winning the fight. I don't know. I don't think they would. Even though I don't know a lot about Rosenberger, that's just by that in itself. That's a reason why I think he's in there with Benavidez Jr. I'm sure they know. I'm sure they know enough about him because they picked him,
I,
right?
I I'll tell you the only reason I know him, and I remembered him when I looked at his face. He actually beat Nico Ali Walsh. If you remember this, I was actually at that fight. It was at the MGM Grand. I believe it was on the undercard of Haney Lomachenko, if memory serves me well.
Mm,
And Rosenberger won, but then the fight was overturned and turned into a no contest because
gotcha.
he tested positive for PEDs, right?
Okay.
So following that, he went back to Colombia, where he padded his record a little bit, got a few KOs and TKOs, and then returned to the United States. Got one win against a guy with a less than 500 record, and then got another win against a guy, Gabriel Escalante, uh, in his last fight, and won a majority decision. I don't know. That's a tough one. Salute to David for keeping his older brother active, though, because it almost seems like whenever David fights, Jose fights, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. It's
you know,
good move for him, man.
very good move for him. Danny says Clarissa or Danielle Perkins. It's funny because I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. why did Clarissa Shields and her team schedule a fight on this weekend?
I don't know.
I mean, there's literally no
I don't
boxing
know.
next week, like of note. I mean, why not just do a fight next weekend? Because the weekend after that is Keyshawn Davis Berenchik, right? Which
Yeah.
is on a Friday anyways, not
Yeah.
on a Saturday. So she could have even gone to Saturday there. And then the following week is, of course, a better Beeb against Bivol too. So I don't understand why she's trying to compete with David Morrell Jr. versus David Benavidez. I just don't get it. In terms of the odds on that one, Danny, you'll have to defer to Joe on that because I know
Yeah.
I know next to nothing about Danielle Perkins as a fighter. So
Clarissa Shields is a whopping minus 2,500 here, 2,500. And Danielle Perkins is a plus 1,100. Now, Clarissa Shields by knockout is a plus 215, which is not bad odds for her. And by decision, she is a minus 250. Um, I'm gonna, I would, I think Shields could get the stoppage here. I think she could get the stoppage here. I'm not against, and I may even recommend taking Shields at the plus 215 with the KO proposition. I like that. I like that. She scored a knockout in her last fight, Clarissa Shields, at heavyweight, right?
yeah, she
So,
did. I
so
mean,
maybe she's settled into her own at the at this weight. You know, being able to fully full out at this weight, being heavier. Maybe she did bring some power up with her. So
Peter
I'll take it.
Peter Fury said one of the most insightful things I've heard someone say about women's boxing as it relates to the weight classes specifically. It was prior to the Savannah Marshall Clarissa Shields fight. He said that the super middleweight division in women's boxing is essentially the heavyweight division of
I
women's
agree.
boxing
I
because
agree.
let's face facts, guys. Those women still cut weight to get down, so those women are probably walking around at 185, 190. But let's be quite honest. I mean, other than maybe shot putters or maybe your discus thrower, maybe you know, how many athletic women walk
Well,
around at over 200
let me
pounds?
break this down for you. So
No,
the
no.
W
How many athletic women walk around at over
Let
200
me
pounds?
break this down for you. The
Yeah.
WBC is the only division, I believe, I'm sorry, I apologize. The WBO is the only sanctioning body
Yeah.
that has a light heavyweight division. The
Yeah.
other organizations do not. So essentially, like over 168 is heavyweight in the other sanctioning body. So if you look at Shields' last fight, she won the WBO light heavyweight, the WBC heavyweight, and the WBF world heavyweight, and she weighed 174 pounds, and her opponent weighed 174 pounds. So basically, these women at heavyweight weigh about 175 pounds, anyways,
Yeah.
right? So she'll probably weigh around the same, I would assume, tonight. So essentially, they're really men light heavyweight in terms of weight. They would be light heavyweight in the men's division. So in her last fight, Clarissa Shields got a second round knockout against Vanessa LePage Johannesi, right?
Yeah.
So people didn't think that was going to happen. I'm going to suggest and recommend taking that knockout proposition tonight with Shields, right? And getting those odds. Take those odds.
Repeat the odds again, Joe.
Plus 215. Shields with the KO because the other young lady only has 5 fights, right? She's never
Yeah.
been knocked out, but she hasn't really fought. I mean, I don't even want to say she hasn't fought anybody because if you think about it, like if you look at how many, there's only 18 women in the in the heavyweight division, right? So, and she's ranked number 2 at heavyweight, and Clarissa Shields is ranked number 1 at heavyweight. So this is not really a thick division. Pardon the pun there, right? It's not a thick division,
Oh, no, it's
right? So it's not a
it's slim pickings.
yeah, it's slim. right? So I'm gonna take the plus 215 Clarissa Shields by knockout here, man. I have no problem recommending that.
Well, Danny, Clarissa, or Daniel Perkins, you just got your answer there, courtesy of the Beeb. Again, this is a special edition of Beating the Odds with Beeb. All right, we're deviating a little bit from the typical sucker punch format for this first hour of the show. We're going to be going over and doing one final fight day preview on my channel. At the top of the hour, I'm going to be joined by his truly, Joel Beeb, plus my guy Danny Glover from Fight Fan TV Live. Um, I think they're both going for Benavidez, unless they've changed their mind since the weigh-in in the press conference. Here we go. I wanted to go to Drunk Irishman again because he's still convinced of the Rosenberger win. He's saying Jose Benavidez has won one fight in 7 years, and that was against a nobody. His legs are gone. Raider Jack says the under 8.5 plus 113 in the Pitbull fight. He likes those odds. Joe, what are your thoughts? Circling back
Good one,
to
good
the
one. Yeah,
Benavidez fight, and then
I'll co-sign that for you.
circling back to
I'll co-sign that for you.
yeah, you like that prop bet?
I do.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty, man. You guys can throw your picks back at us, man, and we can kind of opine on those as well. See, now that's a good one. You made a good suggestion with the Morell hedge too, Maestro. I actually like that one. Something I wasn't really thinking of, but that's actually a great hedge. That's a great one too. I would co-sign that one. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Here's pugilism. Good to see you as always, pugilism. Pugilism says if you can't pick a winner for the David fight, take the plus 166, so plus 166 on stoppage regardless inside 12, or the draw at plus 1500. What are your thoughts,
Okay.
Joe?
I don't I don't hate the draw because again, you don't have to break the bank on that. Jesse Rican, shout out to Jesse Perez, aka Jesse Rican. He always bets the draw. And there was one fight, I forget what it was. I think it was the Better Beeb Bivol fight. He bet the draw.
Yeah.
And the fight was so close. Like that was one of them where he thought that he probably would have got the draw, but he didn't get the draw. But he always bets the draw. He always throws a little something on the draw. I don't hate the draw pick. Again, if you really think that the fight's going to end in stoppage, I just think this fight, I'm really, really in the camp of this fight going the distance tonight. I really believe this fight is going to go the distance. I don't see a knockout here. I really don't.
All right. Given what you just said, I'm looking at some of these prop bets. What surprises you more? You got David Morell Jr. to win by first round KO plus 10,000, right?
Yeah.
The other side of that is David Benavidez to win by first round KO. I think that's a plus. So did I say plus? Yeah, plus 10,000 on that. David Benavidez to win by first round KO is plus 800.
Wow. Okay. That's really
isn't that kind of surprising given how the
huge,
rest of the odds are going?
that's a huge disparity. You know what's crazy is there's not much faith in David Morell according to the odds to win by KO here. But
David Benavidez to win by second round KO plus 5,000. David Morell Jr. to win by second round KO plus 10,000.
Yeah, see, yeah, they don't like they don't like Morell by KO. I think he's a plus 600 by KO, and Benavidez is like a plus. I think he's a plus 300. So, yeah. They don't really like Morell here too much by KO.
Either winner in round 12 plus 2,200. Fight to go to distance minus 225. So you guys can play around with the odds. I'm actually looking on betus.com.
Yeah.
That's a major offshore betting operation. That's where I'm looking at the odds. But yeah, like Joe said, you can shop around.
Always shop around.
Best jobs,
yeah.
best odds. And interestingly, somebody early on in the chat, Joe, said that the fight is actually gone wider since the odds were first announced. Here it is right here. James Hunt, he opened up the show earlier saying
Yeah.
betting odds were closer a week or two ago. What do you think accounts for that?
Well, these guys are smart.
The
They
memo boost?
these guys are smart, the odds makers. If they see something going too far in one direction, they like to try to hedge their bets. So they'll play around with the odds to try to manipulate the lines, try to get people to get two-way action. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're always gonna. The shitty thing about it is when you bet on David Benavidez, it's like a minus 220, right? But if you bet on Morell, it's like a plus 180 or 185, whatever. So basically, they're already vigging you. So if you bet on Morell, you're not going to get the plus 220. They're only going to give you a plus 185. So you see how they vig you a little bit. They don't give you the full. You know what I mean? They always manipulate the line a little bit so they don't. If they do take a L, then it's not so bad. They always give themselves a cushion. These guys. That's why the house always wins, right? Very rarely you're going to see a casino go bankrupt.
Yeah, because
No
they
disrespect to our president Donald Trump, who his couple of his he did file for Chapter 13.
you know why he did that? He thought that Atlantic City was going to be so big that he could own so many casinos in the same geographic location that were
Yeah,
competing with one another. He was essentially cannibalizing himself
correct.
as it related to his casino his
His
casino
situation
operations.
his situation is an anomaly because most casinos in Vegas do pretty well.
Here's one for you as it relates to these fights tonight. Ryan Hong says, I think Angel Fierro upsets Isaac Cruz.
Hey,
First person I've seen say that.
okay.
Let me go to the odds on that one, Joe.
That's wide. That's a pretty wide one. I think Cruz is a minus 1100 if I'm not mistaken, and Fierro's like a
And
plus
and
650.
Ryan, how do you have that going? By knockout or by decision, by disqualification? How would you go for that? How would you pick it? Because I'm looking at the odds on my side here, Joe, for that one. And it's a minus 760 for Isaac Pitbull Cruz and a
He likes
plus
the decision.
485 for Angel Fierro. Oh, he likes the decision.
He likes the decision.
All right. I mean, at the end of the day, when you think about it, what is Pitbull mostly known for? He's known for two things, really.
The left hook.
Going the distance. I mean, in terms of his wins or
Okay.
his fights, going the distance, right, with Gervonta Tank Davis when he was a replacement opponent for Rolly, and a lot of people didn't know too much about him at that time, if memory serves me well. And the other
Yeah.
one was him beating Rolly, right? Are people overestimating Pitbull a little bit? Might uh Fierro be a live dog?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Hey, listen, Ryan. If you bet Fiera, I'll be pulling for you, man. I don't care who wins. I'm not touching that one. I'm laying off that one.
Yeah.
Well, no, I wouldn't mind betting Cruz for the KO. But again,
What are the odds on Cruz for the KO?
I think you got like I think it was a minus 105. So almost like a pick, almost even money Cruz by KO.
I'll pull up the prop bets right here. We
Yeah.
got Angel Fierro to win by KO, TKO, or DQ plus 1,600. Angel Fierro to win by decision or technical decision plus 900.
Wow.
Isaac Cruz to win by KO, TKO, or DQ minus 110.
Yeah.
Isaac Cruz to win by decision or technical decision plus 135.
Yeah.
Draw or technical draw plus 2,000. Honestly, if I was going to bet on Isaac, I might have to drop 10, 20, maybe $30 on him to win by decision because you're getting plus 135 odds on that.
Yeah. It's you're getting a minus 105 on I think FanDuel. So you put 105 to make 100. I don't hate that. I think he's going to stop him, in my opinion. So
yeah. I
But
find it
the odds are telling you that they don't know because it's pretty close both ways, right?
very close both ways.
So That's just my opinion, but your opinion has some weight to it too, because according to the odds, it's tight.
Yeah, very tight. So there's also a Sky card later out on today too, Joe, but I don't know how many people are going to be watching
I'm
that
not
one.
not really enthused about that one.
I haven't been enthused by Sky cards in a really long time.
Yeah, some of those cards
They're
aren't
awful.
really, they're not the greatest.
No, they're terrible
But
cards.
again, we're Americans, so we're not as vested
Yeah,
into those cards than some of our UK counterparts, our friends over the other
I
side of
mean,
the world.
but even they're not even close to the quality of like a domestic matchroom or Queensberry card, like
No, I'm not crazy
Queensberry
about that.
Magnificent Seven card. That they're nowhere near that.
No.
It's kind of like what's the NBA's development league called, the G League, right? It's like G League,
Yeah.
right? Or like watching single A or double A baseball if you're like a Major League Baseball fan.
Wow, that's pretty.
It,
That's pretty. That's pretty.
I
That's
mean,
tough. That's tough there, man.
it's not very good. It's not very good quality
No, not at
professional
all.
boxing. Um, but this fight, I don't know. Sergey Lipinets is kind of past it in my eyes.
Yeah,
Adam Azim is apparently has been ducking the smoke with Dalton, who we saw was it last week on the Matchroom card,
I believe so. Yeah.
right at 140.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not that big on Adam Azim because he doesn't want to fight Dalton,
Mm-mm.
right?
That's right.
So if you don't want to fight Dalton, it's like why am I really caring about your career at this point? I don't think Dalton Smith is that great. I mean, he's
Mm-mm.
good, but he's not that great. Um, so he's using it as a warm up to the David Benavidez, David Morell Jr. prelims. Fair enough. Kermel Morden is on there. You excited about Kermel Morden?
Not really.
You know, the
No,
Mayweather stamp of approval is not doing it for you, Joe.
not really.
Fair
I'm
enough.
not. I'm not crazy about that.
Fair enough. All right. So there you go. Any last words, Joe, before we go over to our final fight day preview? Um, Keeping it nice and short and sweet on both shows today, this Saturday, letting you
Yeah,
guys get ready for your big day of fights.
the card is not a bad card, but once again, the big focal point is it worth $80? And I'm going to answer that question with a big emphatic no. But these are good fights. I like the main event. I like the co-main event. The Cruz fight is a bit intriguing because he is coming off a loss, and a little bit of the shine has been removed off him. So let's see how he looks tonight. So I'm interested in that fight. And Benavidez, the little Benavidez, well, I should say the older Benavidez, but the smaller Benavidez, Jose Benavidez. We'll see how he comes back off of his loss, coming off of another long layoff. So
There you go. Everyone, the link is in the chat. All right, check us out for part 2. We're gonna give a last fight day preview. It's gonna be me, it's gonna be Joe, it's gonna be Danny Glover from Fight Fan TV Live. We're gonna talk about some of the things that have happened this week, later in the week, the talking, the back and forth, the weigh-in, the issue with Don Memo. Don Memo's now trending on social media, at least in boxing, for his involvement in, let's just call it the body transformation of one David Benavidez. So, little interesting things to talk about there. This was Beating the Odds with Beeb. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It was a pleasure as always. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you check that notification bell, and make sure you check out Joe's show every Sunday, unless there's a big football game. Every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, right? That's 3 p.m. Pacific. That's 11 p.m. for you late night boxing lovers out there in the UK. Every Sunday, it's Joe Habib, it's Eric Lorda, two of the best doing it, and Sunday night. So go check that out. But this was Beating the Odds with Beeb, usually Sucker Punch. We wanted to do something special for you guys today. Go check out part 2. Link is in the chat and in the description box if you're watching on demand. We'll see you on the next one.